If you would calculate how much ton you produce on a yearly basis versus, for example, how much rework also costs to bring that again into production, yeah, we noticed that, for example, on a yearly basis, $500,000 could be saved by just using then the AI model instead of the prediction of the settings of the operator.
Hey, welcome today to the Feed Science Podcast brought to you by Wisenetix. We thank you for joining us. We hope we can have an interesting conversation here and we can all learn something. I'm going to ask my guest, Lynn, to introduce herself and tell us a little about herself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. It's the second time, by the way, that I'm joining a podcast at Wisenetix, so happy to do that. So I'm Lynn Verstrepen, difficult last name. That's because I'm from Belgium. And what I do is, in fact, I'm the director of product management at BESTMIX Software. And what we do with our software is we make solutions for the nutrition industry. And that can be, for example, a food producing company, but also feed, pet foods. And we cover different aspects. It can go from intake, formulation, production, up to shipping and delivery towards the customer, towards the client. So we try to make solutions that are a backbone, in fact, for the nutrition industry.
With its advanced industry-specific capabilities, BESTMIX Software empowers nutritionalists and formulators to optimize material allocation, manage recipes, and ensure data confidence for informed decision-making. By providing a comprehensive solution that integrates real-time data and strategic planning tools, BESTMIX enables you to do the job efficiently and precisely. Focus on your core job and let BESTMIX do the rest.
Relative to all that, can you explain to our listeners a little bit about what artificial intelligence is, a little bit about how it works, some of the key components maybe like machine learning, neural networking, and expert systems?
So, in fact, what I notice, because I do a lot of presentations about artificial intelligence and how we see it as a future in the nutrition industry, and sometimes I get the feedback it's difficult, but it's not that difficult to understand. So if we break it down, in the heart you have machine learning, and that is maybe a heavy word, but it's easy to understand in the sense of it's all about learning a pattern. So, for example, if you would analyze, take the weather, the last weather patterns, for example, machine learning is about, okay, if I analyze this data set, can I then predict, for example, what the weather would be tomorrow? That's learning from a pattern and predicting the next step. A neural network, that's a bit a step further, and because then you're going to mimic a bit the human brain, and we have kind of nodes that are connected with each other. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna learn from the things that we are doing. So it's a kind of self-learning system which is behind. For example, face recognition is an example of that. Each time that you add new photos, the system or the model will be better in detecting that you are you. So also your fingerprint recognition is something like that. Each time that you use your fingerprint, you help the model to detect better that this is your fingerprint. And that's a kind of neural network which is behind. If you then go and make the final step, then you can talk about AI, because a machine learning model is not AI. You need to have the neural network and also the expert system at the end. Then you're really going into the field of decision making and performing tasks. So, for example, easy to explain, if you would have an AI model, an expert system, where you tell the system, okay, I have a bit of a kind of pain in my arm, and it's like radiating towards my fingers or towards my hands, that then you get kind of recommendations. Maybe it could come from here or it could come from there. So the system is like performing tasks and performing recommendations based upon the know-how that it was built up. And that's in fact artificial intelligence. And what most people are very surprised about is that you use already in your personal life artificial intelligence on a daily basis. I think everybody knows Netflix. Netflix, if you would watch a movie, the system knows, this category, this type of movie, you like this because you watched the full movie. Next time, your recommendation will be updated, will be customized more towards your behavior. And that's a pattern. Your behavior is a pattern. So the system learns about it. If you would open another Siri and you would, for example, stop after 5 minutes, again, that's a kind of signal that you give to the system. I'm not interested in this. So she likes more this. And these kind of systems you use daily, right? Netflix, Instagram, your feed on Instagram. Like I already said, for example, if you would type a message on your mobile and your correction of your words, that's also AI which is behind it, predicting that that word is not correct and maybe you mean this word, that you have a spelling mistake. Like these type of suggestions, that's all simple AI, I would say. And I think that's the beauty of it. It doesn't need to be complex to understand what it can do. Of course, it can do much more complex things, and that's maybe more for the professional environment. But on our daily lives, this is already nicely embedded.
And so you've kind of touched on our second question here, which is where I would encounter this in my daily life. And so what I'm hearing you telling me, if out here in this country where I live, uh, people always say things like, "Well, my phone's listening to me, or my TV is
Yeah,
listening to me." And really, what we just learned is it's watching us, it's mapping our behaviors, and then it's just simply giving us back what it sees. Is that
yeah, true.
pretty accurate?
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be scared of that part, I guess, if we like the convenience.
You consent, of course. Most often in the apps that you're using, you give consent to use your microphone or whatever. We had, for example, something funny that if you want to try and to surprise your husband, for example, and you're like looking up things, next time you will get commercials advertising about that. And I had a case that my husband was using my computer to search something, and then he suddenly saw some like presents that typically would be for him, and he knew his present already because yeah, I got all these kind of advertising about it. I was like, okay, that's also something that I learned.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but that's also AI.
yeah, and a lot of that's very convenient, right? Like I watch Gunsmoke every day at lunch, and so when I bring up my um, TV, then it says you may also like, and I got a whole list of westerns there. So I mean,
True.
it's very handy to have in that. So why then would you help us understand your opinion why we should use it, more professionally
Yeah.
in professional stuff?
A few years ago, when we were like from BESTMIX investigating, okay, is it first of all worth investigating and researching how we could embed it in our software and also in our strategy? And what I noticed in the research that I did is that in fact you have kind of facts that you can't ignore. We want to achieve a kind of economic growth, I would say, worldwide. But there are some facts that are not really easy to deal with. For example, if you would look on worldwide, you have an aging population. The number of employees that are older than 65, that is way bigger than, for example, the share of the kids below 5 years. So the participation rate that you will get towards the market will decrease. So it's not that you have like that massive go to market there from extra employees possible. So that's a fact that, yeah, achieving then an economic growth, not that easy if you have less people that are introduced to the labor force market, I would say. And something else as well, yeah, it's not that we, for example, can say in the past, for example, in the 70s or in the 80s, still a lot of women didn't work. They stayed at home, they took care of the kids. But nowadays, everybody works already. So also from, yeah, the whole population, already a lot of different categories, you could call it, are already contributing to the labor force. And I think also we don't want to do the kind of game that we did in the past of working harder, working longer, and we all have a kind of vision that we need to work smarter because the work-life balance is important. And that's also something that you then can't use to achieve economic growth. And then that's why we said, okay, how can you then achieve still economic growth? That's via a productivity growth. And achieving a productivity growth could be done via technology, helping you to be more efficient, helping you to do tasks that instead of takes hours, takes you minutes. Stuff like that, in fact, and then AI becomes interesting. Can AI help us to be more productive, and that we can focus on things where we don't know, where we don't have time now for it? And that's how we look to it, in the sense of how can we achieve the efficiency in order that we can stimulate a kind of economic growth via increasing productivity.
That makes a lot of sense. And being in the agricultural field in the feed business, I also would add, there's a lot of jobs that people really aren't eager to do
As well,
anymore.
true.
Working in a feed mill is not like making movies and stuff. And so we see places where automation or artificial intelligence can help us in places where we just simply are struggling to find people, and a lot of that's tied to the number of people that are looking,
Yeah.
as you point out.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it, which leads in, to BestMix and software, which I'm not familiar with your software, but I'm very familiar with software, and so I was wondering if you could, give us some examples where the concepts we discuss, are practically implemented.
I think the easiest example is we are all used of working with software, and I think we all are know the pain of sometimes having a look to the manual and trying to find, okay, I want to have an answer on the item that I'm stuck on, but that's you searching it, right? And a beauty or a beautiful example of AI could be that if the system detects that you're on a certain page or you're in a certain area of the software application and you're already like, yeah, clicking and moving around a certain area, that the system helps you, that it proposes you, for example, hey, maybe you're interested in this topic, maybe it's this parameter that you're looking for, that we bring in fact the information towards the user, that we can improve and elevate the user experience. um, and I don't know if you, for example, sometimes now use ChatGPT. It's sometimes incredible if you want to look for something, that you, instead of asking or searching on the internet for certain documents, asking a question and just having an answer on that question, that's way more efficient. I'm stuck on this page because I want to do this, give me advice. And that's something like a manual 2.0, let's say. That's something that you bring to the next level. And that's maybe a small example that can have like a medium effect on software. But we do see bigger cases that really bring cost efficiency into the nutrition industry. For example, if you would have a look to production, you have a lot of systems in production, like, for example, pelletization or extrusion, where you generate waste. And in these systems, the settings that you put on your machines are crucial to have a minimum amount of waste. But these settings are now determined on the know-how of an operator, for example. And can we build models that are more accurate, that are a backbone for the operator to make better decisions, more accurate decisions? And then we are talking about cost efficiency. And then we go to a next stage, of course, or a next level that it could bring. And these are one of the examples that we are researching in BestMix. You can also, for example, say, I don't know if you're very familiar in the nutrition industry, but if you have advisors that give advice to the farmer about the ration, this is often based upon know-how of the advisor or a theoretical model like CNCPS, for example. But the farmers have a lot of data. For every cow, they have the animal prestations, they know the accurate figures, how much milk is the cow giving, and so on. You can imagine that you could use this data and feed that into an AI model in order that the model can predict the next time if you want to give an advice for that specific cow, maybe take this ration. So you step away from theoretical models, I would say, to the real practical data, which is there at the farm available, and that will always be accurate in the end, more accurate in the end than a theoretical model. And there also AI could play a role.
Yes, and so I'm in the swine industry, have been for 45 years, and one place I've seen that is it really makes the finishers almost become like a research barn now. We did all that in the research barn, and
Hmm.
we said, oh yeah, if we do this, the pigs are going to grow faster, and this and that and the other, and then so we'd implement it,
Yeah,
but we really didn't have a way of measuring that. We just assumed that was all going to happen, and this we've used the ear tags and RFID tags and stuff like that in sows now for some time, and it's amazing how much information
true.
we get back.
Yeah.
Feed mill wise, the first software I started, as you can tell, I'm one of the 65 or right at it group. So, I started making feed when we had these massive control panels and we ran everything manually,
Yeah,
and have grown up then and converted to software and batching software, and the accuracy of batching software. And the thing that blew my simple mind was the number of times it'll check something. The software guy go, oh yeah, we're checking that 10 times a second, and you're like, what? Yeah, we're looking at the rate of fall 10 times a second, calibrating when to shut off. It's really quite amazing how well the AI does some things. Well, a lot of things, but I'm not familiar with a lot of them. So I appreciate that.
but it's the top of the iceberg as well, I think. We see these cases, but we still need to really do a deep dive on how they can really mean something in the industry. And I'm very curious to see what kind of results that we could achieve on this level.
And that takes people open to change, right? Which
Not
is
always easy.
not the common response from old guys like me, like, oh, we always did it this way.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
so do you have any, like, we're kind of talking about this, but interesting cases that you might want to elaborate more on a specific thing that your software does really well?
Maybe not specific on what our software already does, but I can maybe elaborate a bit more on the research projects that we did and to give a kind of bit more of tangible idea. How do you set this up and what do you need to do to get started, let's say.
Okay.
And the first thing, which is very important if you want to do a kind of proof of concept and to see if an AI model could help you in being more productive, more efficient in production, for example, you need data. And data is not one data point, you need a lot of data. So, for example, we did a case with a customer where we, over the past 4 years, they gathered the data of several extruders every hour. And that's a lot of data, right? So they started already a long time ago, and I think that's also a good message in the sense of
Right.
you can't build an AI model starting tomorrow. You first need to start with capturing your data, and then you're prepared to do something in the future with it. And they did that. They did it already 4 years ago. They were capturing the data. So we could investigate and, okay, what can we learn from this data? And what we, in their case, for example, saw that is that the waste at an extrusion process, for example, is there at the beginning, it's during the production run also there available. And we could have a kind of a 50% more accurate estimation than the operator via the model. And these kind of savings, if you would calculate how much ton you produce on a yearly basis versus, for example, how much rework also costs to bring that again into production, yeah, we noticed that, for example, on a yearly basis, $500,000 could be saved by just using then the AI model instead of the prediction of the or the settings of the operator. So these savings could be significant. And it's also not only about waste. I think everybody that works as a nutritionist and a formulator knows that we tend to over-formulate as well. And we over-formulate, for example, on moisture, because we know that during production, there could be a moisture swing. So we want to have some safety in the beginning to really achieve at the end a certain moisture content. For pet food, aqua feed, very important because the water activity for pet foods, otherwise it's not, the palatability is not okay. Aqua feeds, moisture content, very important for the floating or the sinking principle. So yeah, you take that extra safety margin then in the beginning when you formulate, but over formulation is a direct cost. If you could increase or decrease your over formulation, that's like, again, yeah, 100, 200, 300,000 euros that or dollars that you could easily save by, yeah, lowering the over formulation. um, and I think that's where AI can mean something. I'm not promoting that it needs to replace somebody, but it brings more accuracy. It gives you more kind of tools to have your personal assistant there, let's say, to make the right and informed decisions. Um, and that are based upon the data that you have really at your environment of your company. And I think that's something that could really mean something in the industry, that we use the precious data that is there and turn that into something tangible that we can see and that we can evaluate. Ah, makes sense. Let's use this.
Yeah, and that kind of touches on a pretty hard question of, and I think a fear some people have is, does AI replace a bunch of people in the
Yeah,
future? And I think you said it very well that it probably does do tasks that
of
are
course.
rather mundane and people don't want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you see? What do you see AI doing?
I did a presentation this week about AI. It was in the Netherlands for a bunch of Dutch formulators, and I got a really good feedback after that session from somebody. And he told me, yeah, don't you believe that if AI would be there alone, that you would really go to a kind of strict knowledge set, and that you don't have any freedom anymore to have the creativity that is sometimes is needed. And I answered on that. I agree with that. And for me, that is the real reason why an AI model should not work alone. We as a human are different than an AI model because we are creative. AI is not human intelligence, and you will never be able to capture the creativity of a human being into an AI model. And that's what makes us different. So I really look to it as, like I said, it's your assistant. And use the both strengths in the sense of the knowledge that an AI can bring on a very short term notice with the creativity and also the kind of, yeah, emergency handling and gut feeling that we have as a human being, to do that in a combined informed decision, but never like solo, because then it would be a really weird situation sometimes that would appear. And also, don't forget that an AI model is taught and trained based upon the data set that it knows. Imagine you're a very experienced operator or a very experienced formulator, and you work already 25 years in the industry. You encountered cases, you encountered lessons that that AI model doesn't know yet. So it's still important to teach the people, to still train them in those jobs, because that is something that will always be crucial to mix with an automated system, because that automated system is depending on the input that it gets, and the input is coming from somewhere, and that comes from us as a human being. So I really believe in the strength of combining those two. And like you say, it's maybe also naive to say that nothing will replace or nothing will be replaced with AI, because some tasks that don't need this level of creativity or don't need this level of, yeah, maybe complexity, they can be replaced in my eyes by AI. But most often these tasks are also not interesting for us, right? We want to focus on the things that are a bit more complex or a bit more energizing, and it should give us room to focus on these tasks. And I think it's important to look from that angle to it, not as in the sense of it could replace my job. No, it could replace the boring, repetitive things that I don't like. and it gives me room to do a bit more strategic thinking or to do things that maybe were not possible before.
Yeah. Well, that is a very logical explanation. I think if we could share that with all the people that have watched The Terminator and are afraid of AI, that could really help us. That'd give us a giant leap forward in using this tool. And I see AI as a tool, no different,
True. Yeah.
no different than any other tool. It's going to be how we use it, where we try to
Yeah.
use it, and we need to use it where it works, not where we need help and so it's got to be in the hands of the right people, right?
Yeah, true. I also think in the company, if you want to start using this in your company, look from a good angle to it, because if you would assign certain tasks or objectives to it where you really need the human still there in the middle, I think sometimes you will run into the wall and think, this was not smart. But that's also fine, right? We
That's
learn from the
learning.
things that we are trying, and it's okay to make mistakes. So sometimes I also have feedback from people, yeah, but don't you believe that everything is like going too much to the direction of AI? I was like, yeah, but fine. We are still searching, we are still looking what it could bring, and you can't learn without making mistakes. Don't forget that. So let us make mistakes and we will take the right decisions afterwards, but give the room to elaborate and to search.
And the only people that don't make mistakes are the people that are sitting on a bucket over in the corner doing nothing,
True,
right?
true.
That's well. Hey, we'll break here just for a minute. I hope our audience is enjoying this and learning from it. If you are, hit the like button, subscribe, share this with your friends because I think this is very good stuff that we've covered here today.
It's time for our famous three.
And Lynn, if you'd allow, I've got three questions I'd like to ask you that are not part of the AI discussion or
Okay.
could. What's your favorite book or resource in the field of AI that you would consider like kind of be your go-to?
My favorite book, it's not really a book, but what I use on a daily basis is ChatGPT. And really for everything. And why I do it is because it gives me on a daily basis tangible ideas and effects that I know, okay, I can use it for this. You can ask it everything. And sometimes you're surprised of the good answer that you get, and sometimes you're surprised of the thing that you get returned, like, okay, maybe that's something that I don't need to use. But still, by using it daily, you get familiarized with it on a low threshold way, and I think that's very important because you can read a lot of complex studies and stuff like that, but we don't learn without trying ourselves. So if we try on a daily basis via simple tools that are there, if it's now an image generation or a thing like ChatGPT that helps you with texts or with searching things on the internet, I think those are very low steps to get familiarized with a topic, and it always gives you ideas. Maybe we could use it then like this in our professional environment. And I think that's maybe a takeaway that I want to give. Try it. Don't see it as an enemy. Try it.
Yeah, and that leads into my question number two was, what's your favorite resource, outside of your industry? Sounds like to me it might be the same resource.
Yeah, probably yes. Yeah.
Try that. My son is always talking about Chat GP, and I've not done it. I'll have to try that based on your recommendation and see. I like Alexa and that kind of stuff that you've talked about.
Yeah,
Asking
as
questions.
well. Yeah.
If you want to find out how old Willie Nelson is, it just takes that long, right? That's very handy. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, so my last question then is, in your opinion, what makes people, in the feed industry, in the feed science industry, AI industry, what makes some people successful where other people are not?
Daring to do it. If you overthink this, then you will lose, and that's what I mean. Dare to do some trials yourself, because what you don't know, you will not you will not yeah, you will not learn it as well, and it will be in the end also your competitor, let's say. Companies that do invest on this, they will always have extra steps before you. There's a saying in Dutch. I don't know if you say it in English as well, but bring your enemy as close as possible. And I'm not saying that AI is an enemy, but you can use the same reasoning behind it. It's something that you don't know, like an enemy, for example, but bring him close enough, and then you know what are the good things, what are the not good things, and use the good things to do yourself. So don't push it away. I think that's very important. And the companies that do this and that they try these kind of experiments, I would say, because it's also a time investigation and that you need to do. Because if you want to do something in AI, yeah, you need time. You need somebody that can, as a data scientist, can have a look to the data that's coming in and building up. And yeah, maybe 5 out of the 10 projects that you're doing, you can put it in the trash, but still you learned. And that's important because the companies that don't do this, they learn nothing.
Great, great points. Okay, well, if do you have anything else you'd like to share before we wrap this one up?
I think I said the most things. Maybe what's important is that if you want to try this in your company, and if you would ask, for example, the employees, okay, can you maybe make a list of all the things that are repetitive and that we need to maybe automate, or where we see certain patterns. Make sure that you have somebody in your company that will lead this type of project. See artificial intelligence as a project, because people will get demotivated if they need to hand in information and you don't do anything with it. So I think that's important. If you want to focus on it, make sure that somebody in the company will take care of it. And that's, I think, valuable to take away.
That's great advice. Well, listen, I want to thank our guests for joining us today. I hope you learned something. I know I did. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, if you would. And God bless you.